I'm absolutely ready, energized, full of positive energy, right? Today we're going to have a wonderful program today to present to all of you listening in right now. And of course, my team here today, I can see them, they have not woken up yet. They are just still trying. They're still trying. They always look like they're very busy, but I can see they are in a mode of silence. You know, what they're doing is that they look busy, but in the mode of silence, they try their best. Of course, everybody out there has got to understand that during the month of Ramadan, there's an element of hardship. But I will say to you that I'm impressed with one young gentleman here who's joined our team, and he's twice, meaning yesterday and today, he's been here before me. Now, that worries me when I see an energetic youngster who is absolutely on top of his game and he's woken up. That is wonderful, incredibly impressive, that is, right? I need to do more research on that and connect with him, and I'm going to share with you more about this young gentleman. We need more youngsters to join our team here. We need to do some serious sustainability here, right? We need to create tomorrow's superstars. We need them here to join us in some of the wonderful work that we are intending to do here throughout the UK. We need them to be at the forefront. Of course, if we don't teach them, we don't train them, we don't get them ready, we're going to miss the boat. We're not going to have a progressive society moving forward. We're not going to create the champions of tomorrow, right? So all of us, what we do today will define us tomorrow. So if you're all listening in, you got to join me, and we're going to do this together, right? So look through your whole family database and look for those aspiring boys and girls who need the support. They need some infrastructure, they need some work experience, they need mentoring, they need confidence building, they need capacity building, and bring them over. Talk to us, get in touch with us at Ramadan Radio, and we're going to share some ideas with them. And we're going to talk to them. We're going to ask them, what do you want to do? Of course, when you ask a 19-year-old, what do you want to do? Yesterday, very interesting, one of the 19-year-olds who joined us in the studio, and he asked a question to one of the established career guide, career advisor, a mentor, a super expert. And the question he asked him was, I would apply for a job. What name shall I write on my application form? Interesting question. Of course, the career advisor laughed, smiled, dropped his head, shook his head, and he said, I've heard that one before. And that was interesting. I just listened attentively because, of course, every day is a day of learning. Every day we learn new things. We learn new challenges. That's what it's all about, my brothers, my sisters out there. If you're listening in right now, your knowledge is your power, is your asset. And that's what we say here at the Radio Ramadan. Your knowledge is your power, is your asset. Or we say KIP, knowledge is power. And that's what it's all about. So the more we can learn from different walks of life, from different subjects, the more that we engage with each other with different diversities. One of the challenging things that we have been doing here is meeting so many different diversities. Every day you meet another person from another community and you sit with them, young, old. Some of them are in their mid stage of life, which we call the sector 2. The sector 2 is your 25 to 50, and your sector 1 is from your 0 to 25. And of course, sector 3, that is me. We are the bosses. Sector 3 is then later on from 50 onwards. Of course, every one of us, we need to share our experiences. You know, Allah is pleased with us when we share our knowledge. As we said in the beginning of Ramadan, that Allah has blessed us all with skills, with skill sets. And that is so that we can share this knowledge with another. And that could be knowledge about food. It could be knowledge about your education, your experience. And when I look around me, I see everybody wants to be a techie. Everybody wants to be a digital digitized human being. But I don't see enough people out there who are wanting to become engineers. I need to locate all these science people. Well, there's other words for them, but we're not going to use those words. I need the people who are going to take us forward. Without science, we're not going to move forward. All the science that we have has enabled us to create the technology that we have today, right? So we need those scientists, we need those engineers, we need creative minds, and we got to support them, help them, guide them. There's many, many young kids out there, 19, 20, they're in university. We got to get hold of these and support them, guide them, and put them in some direction. So another young lad came here to Radio Ramadan, and he wants to start a business, and he needs some support, he needs some guidance. So what do? We have to take him from basics. So all of you who have businesses out there, put your hands up and take on one of these young guys into your organization, support them. Show them the processes, show them what dispatch is, logistics is, your delivery system is, what your incoming is, what your outgoing is, so they can learn that tomorrow, if they want to become businessmen, they have to work in your shop or your business, your factory, and they have to learn about what you are doing. And that's how they're going to learn to become businessmen. It's not a free ride. You're not going to be 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old and set up a business and say, oh, I'm a businessman. What do you do? I've got my own business. Of course, you've got your own business going to be bankrupt very soon because you're going to run out of cash after 6 months. That's what you're going to be. That's what happens when you start your business and you plan to fail and you fail to plan. You plan to fail and you fail to plan. So if you're going to want to do your own business, you're going to have to go through the steps. You have to start with your baby steps and you have to go up that ladder and learn. Learning is a knowledge transfer. And just like you do from nursery, you go to your primary and then you go to your secondary and then you go to your university and then you come out the other side, you got a great job. And very often it happens that if you don't follow that track, you may be gifted, you may have some great innovation in you, and you won't do all of that, and you will become one of the greatest minds in the world, like Steve Jobs, like Bill Gates, and there's hundreds of people I can give you names of, right? These were exceptional people that they call them, you read their books, they says they were dropouts, Richard Branson. But these guys, what they did was something exceptional. They had drive, they had ambition, they have a lot of innovation in them, and that's what put them there on top of the tree. And they were very creative and so on. So of course, these are just modern day names, but you can go right back into history. You can see communities all over the world, right, that have absolutely thrived, and there were some absolute superstars in them, and they were philanthropic, they were giving. Just talk today, let's mention to you about the Farsi community that migrated from Persia to India and Pakistan. And there were some absolute great people there that came to these new lands, and all they had to offer was the art of creating business. And if you look at India, you look at Pakistan, do your research, go back 100 years and see what they contributed to these two countries, right? They were very creative, very innovative, and they were humble, very respectful people, and very, very charitable. What they made, they put back into the community. So today's youngsters, they need to have these people as their role models. And of course, when you're reading your Quran, you'll find many, many role models, detailed. You have to read about them, you have to learn about them, and you have to follow them as well. And you will never stop finding people across the globe in this dunya, going back 1,000 years, going back 500 years, going back to the present 100 years. You'll never stop finding these people. They are throughout the history book. So use your internet, don't abuse it, use it. If you abuse it, you're going to learn nothing. You will be one big zero. And I don't want you to do that. I want you to start as a zero and become a hero. So today, our guest, has he joined me today yet? Yes? Somebody needs to give him a call. Yes? So I'm going to send you his number if you can come and collect it from me and give him a call. Yeah? And give him a WhatsApp. So he will be able to connect with us. So here in our studio, we work with hand signals. So when I want something done, I do kind of a thumb up twice. Yeah, twice means something, and then 3 times means something. And then somebody comes into the studio, and I can communicate with them. Everything here works with hand signals. You know, that's the technology we follow here, right? Or, of course, our control room, they have more superior technology. What they do is they send messages up on the screen, and we look at that screen and we're able to respond. And there are screens everywhere in the studio, so a different screen is for a different purpose, right? And that's what we do. So guys, if you are listening right now, do connect with us and talk to us and tell us if you have some aspiring youngsters in your families that we can all work with. Now, next week, we'll be working on all these employment situations, how COVID has affected everybody in the community, and the issue of joblessness. And we're going to be discussing that. We're going to have many different people come and talk to us about that. And these are very important subjects to deal with, because we've gone through COVID, and the other side, we've got to come out of it and deal with all the challenges that lie ahead. Our communities cannot function progressively if we don't have enough people who are going to join with us, and they're going to be in a job. If they're not in a job, they will have other social problems in the family, and we don't want that. We absolutely have to make that clear, that we need everybody on board with us and share with us. We have to travel this journey together. So all of us who are struggling out there right now because they don't have a job can affect us in many different ways. So please be mindful of that. Next week we'll be running a theme on that. Today we're just giving you some bullet points, and we got to start working with everybody in the community and all the different stakeholders, different organizations. And here at the radio, all we can do is signpost people. So this week we have been discussing the issues of racism, structural, institutional, systemic, and it's a problem that we have seen for many, many years now. And you will all have recently read the SEAL report, which said that England is a model country, there is no racism. And we had lots of people contacting with us and absolutely fuming. They were saying that we don't agree with this. And of course, we can't do anything about that, but listen. But it is very interesting to listen to what different people have to say, how they are sharing with us. And our guest has joined us today. Of course, when I look at him, I'm happy. I get cheered up, right? And he always makes me smile. So, Mr. Sanjeev Nechany, do you hear us loud and clear?
I do say good morning and to all your listeners, and hope they're all keeping safe and well and getting vaccinated during Ramadan.
Of course, sad circumstances like last year, it was even worse. We came together, and a year has passed by and we've not even actually met or seen each other, have we? We've just exchanged a few messages on the WhatsApp.
No, we haven't, and I think that represents the fact that humanity has been put through a very severe test. And just when it looked like we were coming out the other end, people very dear to us in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, now right in the middle of it. So yeah, it's really sad and sobering.
Yeah, this is a point that we were going to talk about today. The situation in India is been absolutely unbelievable, something you and I, or anybody for that matter, has ever seen before in their lives. You know, I can't recall a situation like that, even in history, where on the roadsides people are being cremated, and it's an absolute shocker, isn't it?
Yeah, words just can't describe. I mean, I don't think there's enough description for the scale of the tragedy that's going on. Um, and it's the worst human combination of hubris on the part of the leader and leaders, and ignorance, um, and this attitude, this laissez-faire attitude. It's all right. We'll be all right, Jack. No, it's fine. As we say, chalega, chalega, kuch nahi hoga. And that's turned out to be lethal, and shocking, and it's just so sad. Yeah, really, really sad.
Yeah, of course. And earlier on in the week, we touched upon this subject and we said that both these are nuclear powers, India and Pakistan. And only a month ago, they were doing nuclear tests. In the midst of this pandemic, you would think logic, humanity would say to you, look, this is not a priority. Our priority is to find solutions to save humanity. And today, one has no vaccine, Pakistan, and India, superpower number 3 in the world, has no oxygen. 1.3 billion people live there, and you would have thought that somebody would have had the foresight to say, look, let's start getting our oxygen tanks ready. Now, you are in the hospital work all your life. You know the value of having the right equipment.
Absolutely right. Right equipment is crucial, and the problem is it's all this international posing and posturing that we've got this nuclear armada, and then we can destroy. I mean, none of this nonsense affects the lives of the ordinary normal citizen, but actually not having oxygen, the devastation is clear for everybody to see. And the problem is, I don't even think anybody will learn any lessons from this. That's the problem. That is, not only is the tragedy beyond words, we just won't learn lessons from this absolutely awful situation we're in.
Now, one of the questions that makes us both shake our heads is, in the midst of pandemic, in COVID, why would they even dream of promoting political gatherings, religious gatherings, sporting events, where India is not like England? If you even have one cricket match, there are 60 to up to 100,000 people that turn up at a ground.
Yeah.
And a religious gathering, there can be miles and miles of people. You can even see, I don't even want to say the numbers, minimum would be 100, maximum is 1 million. You put all these people together, huddled up to each other. And why would they even do things like that? Where's the element of simple, basic education gone amongst the leaders?
Yeah, I mean, it just beggars belief. I think the leaders, and this is what happens. Sadly, human beings are not programmed. The vast majority of human beings, particularly the politicians, are not programmed to be able to deal with the amount of power that they get. And this is what's happened. The Prime Minister has been completely and utterly corrupted by the power that he holds. And all he's interested in is nationalism. There's an awful racist element to his policies and what he says. And he's only interested in getting re-elected. He's not interested in the people who are re-electing him. He's only interested in that pulpit. And this is the worst demonstration of human nature and human characters. It will go down as history will rank this as one of the most, the worst demonstrations of human hubris, megalomania, and ego ever. And that's the problem.
Of course, historically, my brother Sanjeev, you have seen that racism has always been a tool of rule throughout centuries.
Yes.
Even if you go through the last 100 years, you can start even beginning of the century, the element of racism was prevalent there from beginning, if we don't have to go through 10,000 years, but let's even go through 100 years, right up to present day. It's a tool of rule. And it's an education that we do not give to our nursery schools, our primary schools. And if we don't fix the problem at that stage, 25 years later, you're going to be crying about it like we are doing so now.
Yeah, absolutely. Zed, you hit it on the nail. Um, there are a couple of things here. One is if you look at experiments and research, human beings are inherently programmed to look at different human beings. So human beings who appear different in a different way. That's how we are programmed. Now, with that knowledge, therefore, as you say, we need to educate our young that despite appearances, despite color, despite caste, despite creed, we should human beings are one race. And the world has, until we were stopped in our tracks by COVID, become such a small place. There was so much more mingling, there's so much more internationalism. There's such a massive, particularly in this country, massive increase in marriages and relationships across different types of people, different colors of people. So there had been massive progress, except where there isn't adequate education, and they grow up with this dogma uh, that one race is better than the other, one religion is better than the other, and this is the tragic result of that. As I said, it makes no difference to the quality of life of the ordinary person like you and me. However, those that fall into this, those that are gullible, get sucked into this vortex, and the tragic results are there in history for everybody to see. Yeah, the education must start when the child's mind is impressionable. That's the time when you can mold the child's thinking, mold the thinking of children. That's when all this must start. That we are one human race. This is one world. Color, caste, creed, geography, etc., height, weight is irrelevant.
Wow, it almost, I'm shedding tears when I hear these words, because it's something that I'm feeling all the time. And the work that I do is in my business, outside of my business, is all based around that foundation: race, color, creed, culture, religion, tradition. And you will see that when I speak about these things, I flow. I flow because it's the passion in me that comes out, and it's something that I share with you. And hence the reason we have a great chemistry together since ever since I met you. It's
Indeed,
something which
you're a
is,
great advocate of
yeah,
this.
it's something which is at our core principle, and it's building humanity, is building your community in that direction. And it's absolutely challenge. I'm fighting these battles every day. We have this issue of color, caste, creed in every single community. There's no one community I will pick out there and that are not like that. And earlier on, I think we're coming to the end of the first session. We're going to join you all again after the second session. Yes? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Brothers and sisters, we are back here for a second session here on the Z Morning Show on Ramadan Radio. Of course, without you listeners out there, we would just be here talking to ourselves. So I'm really happy that some of you are sending in some text messages here on my phone. I appreciate that. And today in the program, we have Mr. Sanjeev Nechany. He is our expert in many medical areas that he will discuss with us today. And we particularly want to talk about, Mr. Sanjeev, about some of the subjects today, is the number of people from the BAME community who have lost their lives during this pandemic over the last year. We are over a year now.
Yeah, a really sad statistic. And of course, behind every statistic, there's a tragic story and a real person. I think that's a combination of things. One is that, I mean, first of all, I don't like the word BAME, but we'll just carry on using it.
Well, you'll be pleased to know that I was advocating the elimination of this word because I always call this word balmy.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
I totally agree.
And I was always shouting to the MPs, our councillors and everybody that, look, I can't stand this word. You know, why? Yeah. Why are you patronizing me by putting me in a segmented part of society, right?
Exactly.
Look at the color of my passport, right? And I don't like that. And I was so happy and jumping with excitement when my good friend, Mr. Boris Johnson, he also shared my sentiments. And I said, you know what? If you keep trying, change will happen. You can drive the change. And he absolutely... Did you hear in a couple of weeks ago in the news?
Yes, after the recent race review, I thought one of the conclusions was that this BAME, this idiotic term BAME, should be dropped. So I think it'll happen when people have time to focus on it. So, yeah, and I think it's, what happened to the community was a combination of things. One is a lot of us work on the front line and therefore met the avalanche of patients with COVID and therefore were affected much more. And the other thing, of course, is South Asian, Afro-Caribbean genes predispose us to diabetes, high blood pressure, and that is something that COVID capitalizes on, and sadly, it's why the death toll was so high. So I think it's a combination of reasons. I personally don't subscribe to the theory that the government let it rip amongst the BAME community. I don't think that's true or correct. And I think, like most things, there's usually a number of reasons for why something ends up the way it does. And certainly in this case, I think that applies too.
Of course, outside of the NHS, the people who are living in the inner cities, the ethnicity, the diversity, these are also people who live in close proximity to each other. They also have been affected immensely, and the number of lives lost, if you do your drawings and your circles around the inner city, those figures are astonishing as well.
Yeah, indeed. That prompts, and of course it's very sad, very tragic, but that prompts a debate as to the factors behind that state of affairs. So, is it because for economic reasons? Is it because we prefer to stay in large households because our family unit's much stronger than many of the ethnic groups in other ethnic groups in the country? So once again, it's, and I don't like using the word complex glibly, but I think this is much more complex than it's economics, it's social cohesion, family structure, all of that played a toxic mix because this germ loves exactly that. This germ thrives in that sort of environment, and therefore it was the perfect storm for all sorts of reasons.
So this is a huge issue for all of us, and of course the various universities are doing a lot of study on this, and we shall have some outcome on that. But the inner city community are the ones who have been fueling all the factories, our production lines. If you look around throughout the country, and you will see that without them, the whole complex would be at a standstill. And they have been going in to work to ensure that our food chain is continuing. And
yes, they have been providing yeoman service to the country without a shadow of a doubt. And once again, it's also the economics because of the work ethic, which I think is phenomenal. They rather work than call in sick. They rather work than rely on handouts from the government. And that is what drove them to carry on working, sadly, to a great cost to themselves. Yes. So it's the workers in the factory, it's the people in the shops, it is the absolutely crucial, incredible contribution. I mean, until we have another word, let's use BAME, until BAME people in the NHS. So across the board, the BAME community is the bedrock of this country and punches way above its weight. What the percentage is 10 or 13% of the entire population. The contribution we make is absolutely enormous. And proudly so. And I'm British Indian, and I'd say that with great pride. That I'm very grateful to have lived in this country for over 30 years now. I'm very grateful for what I've been given, and I've done my best to contribute and return to this country.
of course, it goes without saying, we mentioned this earlier on, that our contribution, our input, I feel all the time that we are used in the inner cities for a vote bank. The political complex will feed us with the crumbs, and then we are left to, we are literally bought to vote. And this is a huge concern, and these are issues that we are addressing with our MPs, that some change has to come forward on these matters.
Indeed. I mean, it's almost a sort of a microcosm of what happens back in Asia. And to a certain extent, and this I hope will change over time, one of my big frustration is that the communities you describe, which are providing such a great service to the larger community, are very insular. They don't actually feel part of the fabric of this great country. And that must be addressed over time. They must be included, incorporated, must feel part of the fabric. And then they'll venture out from these very insular communities and mix and have themselves have a much better quality of life, which they deserve because of the amount, because of the hard work that they put in to, as you say, keep the country's engines running. So that needs to be addressed over time. Greater mixing, greater cohesion. And you know, we live in Leicester and we're very fortunate that this embodies, shows social cohesion, tolerance, and we're all very proud of that. But that needs to also filter out to the smaller communities where at the moment it's still, communities are live side by side but are still very divided.
Of course, that goes without saying, and these are some of the things on our agenda that we are looking into to address them, to deal with them, and do more connection within our communities in the inner city. And so often you ask people, do you know how many diversities there are in the inner city? And they don't know the answer. Mm-hmm. They do not know. And until we do that, we're not going to produce a progressive society. And I think this is something that we have to do ourselves, not wait for anybody else to do it for us. We, the collective communities in the city, have to step forward and address these issues ourselves, to understand that we need to build a society based on race, not on race, color, creed, religion, culture, tradition. And I myself been talking to a lot of young people, listening to some of their grievances, and they will tell me many stories of racial tones from within their own tribalistic environment, from other communities that they live with. And all these things, the answers, they lie here in the inner city, in every part of England and the rest of the world probably, but we are focusing here on the UK and addressing these issues ourselves. Personally, I don't need the SEAL report to define for me what is happening in reality. In reality, I'd love all of these people on that report to come and take a walk down the street with me and talk to the same young people that I'm talking to. And what they will tell you does not at all reflect to what you're reading in these reports. And of course, these reports are used as a political guideline for tomorrow, which is worrying for me.
Yes. I mean, I haven't read the report in detail. So, of course, without a shadow of a doubt, there are still significant issues. But at the same time, I would say, not just from personal experience, but what me and you have discussed as to the contribution of the BAME community across the board in different strata of life, that this could not have happened. Yes, we are very industrious and we're very hardworking and we're very persevering, but this could not have happened unless there has been a substantial reduction in racism over the last few decades.
Of course, now
a lot of work still needs to be done. I think progress has been made. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Home Secretary, the previous Business Secretary, or the current Business Secretary, the President of COP, etc., etc., etc. One of the closest advisors to Boris Johnson, her name is Munira. So yes, of course, in a complex society like ours, multicultural society, there will be significant problems remaining to be solved, but I think progress has definitely been made.
Of course, this is a all-night subject, we call it. We'll be talking about it all day, all night, and we're going to move on to now something even very important, close to my heart, close to your heart, is the work that we do collectively with HLH, which is Healing Little Hearts. I'm going to give you a very fast introduction to that, because we are conscious of time. Healing Little Hearts is a charity that was founded by Mr. Sanjeev Nechany, and we here worked together recently, not long ago, but very recently, where a team of medics went from the UK to India, and a team of medics at the same time went to Pakistan. And that was at a time of turmoil and a lot of friction between these two countries. And we both took it upon ourselves to go there and to show a face of humanity, that we are here to save lives, where there is no borders, colors, creeds, religions, cultures, traditions. And you will pick up on that, Sanjeev.
Yeah, I mean, you've encapsulated it beautifully. Zed, Healing Little Hearts, sends volunteer teams of doctors and nurses across the world, 12 countries so far, to perform heart surgery on babies, children, and teenagers for free. We are very prolific. The great British public, including many of your listeners and you yourself, Zed, have been incredible in the support for us. Sadly, we came to a shuddering halt before, just when COVID hit. But before that, in the year of 2019, we undertook 24 international missions. So the busiest children's heart charity in the country. And because, I'm fairly stubborn and I persevere, I'm quite happy to share with your listeners that I managed to assemble a team from within India just 2 weeks ago to go to a very impoverished part of northeast India called Manipur, and we had another camp, another mission, where we successfully operated on 10 children. So despite the lockdown, despite COVID, this is of course before the current storm raged in India, we managed to get a camp done. And I'm currently negotiating with a surgeon in Lagos, with Sudan, with Nicaragua, Palestine, etc., to go as soon as we think that it's safe to go.
Of course, this is work now which has developed to a worldwide stage, and it's absolutely fantastic. Some of the initiatives where you have got trained medics from within the country to do work in the country. And what can all of us do as a community is to support this wonderful initiative. And when we are giving charity to the tune of 100 million, that is just in the Muslim community during the month of Ramadan, we should always bear in mind that saving lives is at the forefront of what we are trying to achieve. So please be mindful of that and always put HLH on your list for a charity to support, and will all Allah be pleased with you all. Now, I'm going to move on to the project called Once Upon a Time 50 years ago. This project is about the Ugandan Asians who were expelled from Uganda in 1972, who 50 years, next year will be 50 years, and one of our initiatives is that we want to do 50 initiatives in that country, and myself and Sanjeev are working on setting up a camp in Uganda latter part of 2022 in one of the cities. The main city is probably Kampala or Entebbe, which we are working through the Minister of Health over there right now. And this is another milestone, Sanjeev, to go back and find 50 initiatives, and this one being at the forefront of one of those initiatives to happen. The HLH team to go from the UK to Uganda to carry out these surgeries.
Absolutely, Zed. I'm really flattered and thrilled that you are inviting HLH to be part of this landmark initiative. I think it's a great way of celebrating the contribution of Ugandan Asians. And of course, if you rewind, it goes back to exactly what we were talking about. We've been talking about Idi Amin and megalomania and hubris and misogyny and all those sorts of things, which sadly politicians have in toxic, abundant doses. But that's history. We're looking forward, which I think is great. It's very positive. And yeah, it'll be a pleasure to take a team of doctors and nurses and perform free heart surgery on children in Entebbe, not just once, but on a regular basis, because I know this will resonate not just with me, but the very significant number of Ugandan Asians who have done phenomenally well in the UK, despite having had such a torrid start in life. So hats off to this community, to all of you, and being asked to help commemorate this milestone is a huge compliment, and I'm really thrilled. So thank you. It'll be a pleasure.
Of course, Sanjeev, and I share this with all the listeners, that it's not only a celebration of the Asian community, of their successes in the UK since Idi Amin expelled us all, but it's also the commemoration to remember the 500,000 who lost their lives during this upheaval from 1972 right up to 1980 in political upheaval in that country. Up to 500,000 people, literally was genocide. And then that genocide was followed by the genocide in Rwanda in 1990s.
Yeah.
So it's something that we have to not forget. We were lucky and fortunate that we came out. And this is a stat that everybody needs to know about.
Yeah, and there's no better way of commemorating them, remembering them, etching them in perpetuity by doing something positive. And one of those initiatives is giving life to children who otherwise wouldn't live to adult years. So I'm full of admiration for what you're doing, Zed, and yeah, you've got great energy, which is absolutely brilliant.
Well, of course, Sanjeev, we're going to share more details with you. We're coming to the end of the program now, and I'd like to thank everybody today, and we look forward to meeting with all of you tomorrow again at the same time. Thank you.